Good evening, everybody. Happy Wednesday night, the day after the primary, right? So I guess we're still standing, depending on, depending. But we had a very big night last night. Education First Alliance. We had a very, very big night. We ran 29 candidates of those, or we endorsed 29 candidates of those 21. So great night. Fantastic night. But tonight is in the beginning. It's about thanking the volunteers, the Army. We had volunteers from Craven, Onslow, Lee County, right here in Wake County, Johnston County, of course. We had Mecklenburg, Cabarrus, Watauga County, Avery County, Buncombe County, coming together. They made the phone calls, many phone calls. We made 555 phone calls the day before Election Day to get out the vote, to remind people to support our candidates, right? They made the phone calls. They knocked on the doors, sometimes in very, very long heat, a couple days, even in the rain. We were poll greeting. So we were out there at polls, out by the coast to up in Western North Carolina. But it's all the volunteers, the Army, that came forward to make sure that this November, voters have a real choice. They'll be able to vote for a real change agent to send either to Raleigh, to the school boards, or to DC. They'll have the opportunity to vote in a real change agent with a backbone that will put children first and that will make good on our promise to put education first in the classroom. I'm going to bring in Nancy and Suter, board members of EFA. I mean, are we kind of glad to be done?
We're not done.
I mean, we're just done today. Tomorrow, thank you, Killjoy.
Sorry, I didn't mean that in a bad way. It kind of makes me raring to go some more.
You're just getting started. I mean, could it been hotter yesterday, Suter? You're out there for hours. I mean,
No.
Yeah. But you know what the interesting thing is that it's so fun being out at polls because you meet people from all walks of life. We got to ask voters questions. We got to find out about people. We got to see people we hadn't seen in years. It is a lot of fun. And after we put our press release out tonight, by the way, we got roughly 100 volunteers to sign up all over North Carolina to volunteer for the elections, as you put out. We're just beginning, right? We're just beginning. So I'm going to go over some of the election results that we had. But Nancy, I mean, Nancy's the research guru.
Yeah, just like it. But yeah, I was following the live results last night in the primary, which I've never done before in my life. Things have certainly changed for me, seeing all that's been going on with our kids and education and all of that. So I think the results were really solid and good. And congratulations to EFA and for only doing this a very short period of time and only being a PAC for a short period of time and endorsing some strong candidates. It was really exciting to see the results come in.
Which you mentioned, we transitioned from just a group that does journalism. In March, we became a super PAC. So we can support candidates all up and down the line, which you're going to talk to different ones tonight, from school board all the way up to federal. And so when we became that PAC, a lot of us united. I mean, we've got teachers on our board. Suter, you're a teacher, and we represent teachers. We've got, Nancy, as I always say, could take out your gallbladder if you had to have it done. The surgeon.
You had to.
Well, I mean, I would trust you. Just give me like a shot before you do it.
Yeah.
For mercy. But anyway, we came together to get this done, and we said, look, I mean, we can expose this stuff, but we have got to have change agents that are going to stop the spending on things like grooming and CRT and put that money and put those resources into I don't know, teaching kids to read and write. Is that so controversial, Suitor?
I mean, it shouldn't be, but apparently it is.
Well, you come out of Charlotte Mecklenburg school
What they
system.
need.
Yeah. Yeah. You come out of Charlotte
Yeah.
Mecklenburg school system. You know better than anyone. I talked to several people yesterday. I don't really know the final turnout numbers. We've been crunching the data here on other things, but I talked to several people yesterday who, I was talking about school board candidates and some of the issues, and they mentioned that they have never voted in a primary before, and said that this year it was very important to them to send put the right candidate in front of all voters come November.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think
I
I've
talked to
ever
a lot
voted in
too.
primary.
Right. I mean, Nancy, you've never been interested in the primary before. And so
Not so much. No, I mean, I was never involved to that level of detail, so yeah, I mean, I think I am like a lot of people where all of a sudden it's like, okay, like we really need to change direction now. And the people who aren't hacking it, they need to be sent
hacking
packing.
it. That's a good one, right? Hacking it, never mind.
Yeah. Little rhyme, little limerick, little primary limerick there. No, but I mean, that's the thing. I think people are just getting so tired of this kind of, deep state complex, or these politicians that are more interested in just continuing to be politicians rather than representing the people, or are bullied by corporations or that type of thing. And I think, the citizenry is really looking for people who are going to get into office and stand up for common sense stuff for the person, for the individual, and are tired of being bullied by, the elites and these woke corporations. And they're seeing when some politicians aren't doing that, and they're going to be held accountable by the populace, which is nice to see. It's a bit of a white pill, to see some of that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely change is coming.
And I'm not sure. Oops, sorry. I was just going to say, I'm not sure what it normally is, but I did pull up the percentage of ballots. 20% went out to the polls, or just under 20%. So
in Mecklenburg or statewide?
Yeah, that's statewide.
Pretty good.
Also, I don't know about you all, but the people running the small polling place I was in yesterday in Rowan County, they opened like 3 packs of the ballots for Republicans, and they only gave out like 5 for the Democrats.
I know. I saw very few.
So I think
very few Democrats. I think there's an energy.
We're pulling people out.
Yeah, we definitely are, and it's the issue of education.
We need to do.
So it's the issue of education. So
a lot of people said that.
Yeah, same here. So we're going to bring on 2 candidates, but let me tell you a little bit about what makes an EFA endorsement. So we kind of bifurcated it in this manner. We ended up supporting a couple of people that were actually incumbents. In other words, they've already served. And so let me pull this up for you right here and show you what I mean. So we endorse this top line right here. These guys are incumbents. They're all senators. This is Ralph Hayes, who is in Senate 47. This is Norm Sanderson in Senate 1, Warren Daniel in Senate 46. All 3 of these guys have either initiated themselves. Actually, all 3 of them have initiated 3 different bills that would keep transgender grooming out of the schools, number 1. Number 2, they all 3 have initiated at least 1 bill that would keep boys out of the girls' bathrooms and off the sports teams. In other words, they've walked the walk. We endorsed them. Now, the other 2 candidates that we endorsed, and many more, have agreed to kind of our platform. I'll tell you a little bit about it. To get boys off the girls' sports teams, to protect children from grooming, and to reappropriate the money that's being used now to divide children in the classroom, to pay our teachers more, and to actually teach our children. These candidates have also committed to at least a 50% reduction in the Department of Public Instruction, maybe reallocate that money to teachers or back into the classroom, and also to audit the DPI. Look, they're always poor mouthing and begging for money, right? We've got the education lottery that goes to education. We've got copious amounts of billions of dollars, actually, in federal spending, just pouring in like a sieve. We want to know where that money is gone, where it's going to. So these are the candidates that are going to come forth and make that happen. Now, I'm going to bring on Brian and Melissa. But Suter, you're going to have to go backstage in the green room. Please don't touch the champagne in there, and do not wreck things, because last week we had Guns N' Roses backstage in the back room. Yes, still alive, and they tore that place up. Don't mess with it.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
if you can, just clean it up a little bit. All right. So we're bringing up Brian. Brian, was it dirty back there in the green room from Rose and Sludge destroying it?
It was wild back here.
All right, and Melissa Mason. So, Brian, incredible victory last night. You're the Republican nominee. We're pumped to represent, and it's 53, correct?
73.
73.
I knew it was a 3. All right.
Yes.
73. You're the Republican delegate, and I think it's like a +4 in your district. So you're going. Eric's here, and he said he donated to your campaign.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric.
Because he knows you're going to get the job done. Melissa Mason, I mean, you just won a hard-fought battle in New Hanover for school board. School board is a blood sport out in New Hanover.
You're telling me. Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane. And so I wanted to have you both on, because you are, I mean, all of our candidates, you guys have been like our babies. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but we're kind of talking like parents. Like Suter and I were talking last night, like, oh my God, are they going to be okay? Okay, what do you think? All right, just nervous, right? But you guys did great. And so each of you did great in your own way. So Melissa, you're running in a district, one of the 3 districts that we know of that have these gender care plans that Brian is going to put a stop to. Let me tell you about these plans. They, after they've groomed children with social emotional learning lessons in the classroom, what they do is in New Hanover is they have this plan, and you went to the school board and you said, ain't having it. And the plan says, look, how supportive are the parents at home on a scale from 1 to 10? Rank the parent. Okay. And if they're not deemed suitable by the teachers, and we've seen some of these damn teachers, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to transition them and keep them kind of that secret from the parents. And we're also going to assign them, like, you heard a support animal, a support adult other than parent that's going to transition them. Now, this is a school district, Melissa. I don't have all the numbers correct, but in a decade, there's been 13 school teachers who have been either arrested or acquitted for raping children over the past, 10 years, multiple children, and keeping it a secret from parents.
Yeah, there was actually one that was they ruled it, the man guilty he was a band teacher at a middle school. They just ruled him guilty yesterday. But yes, let's keep secrets from the parents, because.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this needs a response, and it needs a response, Brian, from the General Assembly on down to the school board. I mean, the bill, Brian, that Heist wrote, it actually makes everything I just talked about illegal to do. And that bill is still, it's sleeping, but it's still alive.
Yes. I mean, something has to be done. It's a shame that we're having this conversation. I was listening to you, that we even have to have a conversation about these things, and that's just how far off kilter we are. But what we're going to do is, the people are speaking. In my race, we saw overwhelmingly that our community is looking for common sense, conservative values, common sense values regarding parenting and teaching. And quite frankly, I mean, I think it's what, 58% of the state's budget goes to DPI, but we're ranked 30 something in the country. Well, I mean, in no business model do you get 13 billion and get and it's acceptable to be ranked 30 something. So if we're going to talk about education, all of this other stuff has to be put out, and we need to focus on education. Our kids can't read, and maybe that's what people want in 10 years, 15 years, voters who can't read, administrators who can't read. And I don't know exactly what they're looking for, but the people don't want it. The parents don't want it. The guy down the street doesn't want it. Only the weirdos want it.
Yeah. Weirdos is a great term.
They're bizarre.
I know.
Bizarre.
I mean, I'm so scared. I mean, in a selfish way, but I mean, for my friends too, or for anyone,
Yes.
you know, 30 years down the road, your caretaker or your physician or your lawyer is, you know, can barely write a paragraph, you know, it doesn't have the comprehension to take in different ideas and sort through them and figure out what's the best plan to implement. I mean, we need thinkers in the generation, not just for their benefit, but for our benefit. And to want to take that away, you know, for some radical ideology in these ideologues, it's beyond weird. It's ridiculous. And I think that's why the populace is looking for people like you two to come in and be like, stand up to these name callers and say, no, that's, you know, I'm not a racist. I'm not transphobic. I just want the best for the kids.
And you know what, Nancy? We're going to double, triple, and quadruple down on the truth. And we're going to watch where it takes us. Because imagine, and I don't know much about what got stuck in the committee, but I can tell you nothing that is good for children, nothing that stops this lunacy should be stuck in any committee.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, like,
right.
Why is this stuck in anything when there are children who are being endangered? And it is an endangerment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it absolutely is.
Here's the thing is, you guys, I will tell you this. What we have heard constantly, and I think people yesterday showed people are getting sick of it. We've heard, give us a supermajority. We have to put this in committee. We're not going to vote for it because we know that the governor's going to veto it. Our thesis has always been, and both of you answered our questionnaires, we're very big on wording our questions this way. Will you use your bully pulpit, your platform, to articulate for these changes? That means, I don't care if you can get it through or not, but you're out there talking directly to the people about, Brian, it being stuck and that it is stuck, and being willing to put our side on the line and under pressure as well. But you know, we're hearing that excuse. And I have to tell you, I'm glad that we did get such a big turnout. Suter, who's backstage, putting her feet up. That's okay. You can put your feet on the coffee table, Suter. Enjoy. But we did get a great turnout because, you know, I was worried about it not being a great turnout. I mean, 20%, by the way, is considered pretty good for the primaries. It's not what we want, but the people are tired of hearing, Brian, it's going to be stuck in committee because we don't have the supermajority. Because Melissa, you're sitting here, you're going to be on the school board and you've run to get the stuff out of school. But if you do not have that partnership with the General Assembly, you're not going to be able to get it done.
You're right. I'm going to run into a brick wall over and over again. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop trying, because I think it's important that we continue the fight for our kids. And whether I'm successful at it or not, our parents need to know what's actually happening.
Right.
They have to know, because we've been kept in the dark. As a mom, I've been kept in the dark for too long, and it's unacceptable. And I'm not going to allow it to continue on the board, off the board, wherever I am. People have to know this information.
They have to know.
Yeah, no, that's one of these things is, even if that's what I get frustrated with when they say it's stuck in committee or there's an excuse or they're playing politics, because it's like, well, at least get it out on the platform so people know what's being worked on and what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve and what we need to tweak and what we don't need to tweak. Because if it doesn't even get out there and they don't even know, you know, it's not like your everyday person is going to go on the NC Ledge website, you know, and search for this stuff. And also, I think what's also important and great is just here. I mean, we have school board candidate, we have House rep candidate. I know, Brian, your friend Kenny, who I'm a fan of, I would like to congratulate him for county commissioner, which is a very important seat because they work with the school boards. We seem to be developing this network of people who can talk and figure out, where things need to happen when in our system, different levels of government, which I think has been lacking too. Like, you go to a legislator, they don't even necessarily know that they're overseeing a DPI, or they don't know what their local school board are doing. Or you say, hey, do you know about this policy? And they're like, well, talk to the local school board. It's like, well, no, how about you two talk together and figure this problem out? So it's really exciting to me in this primary to see people get together, work together at totally different levels. And hopefully we can keep those relationships going so that communication can help things move faster in terms of rescuing our kids.
Absolutely. And Nancy, can you imagine what the voter turnout would have been? And again, I'm not trying to second guess what I don't know, but I know if there was a bill that got the transgender things, the sexual grooming things out of the classroom and Cooper vetoed it, we would have had another 10% voter turnout in the primary.
Right.
So we don't lose by getting out there and fighting. We don't lose by getting out there and fighting. And I think, Sloan, we had the last conversation here. You all, Sloan, Nancy, Suter, you make us brave. You make us brave. Your support emboldens us to go forward with the fight. And I believe that we're going to see an overwhelming majority of support for this because people are talking about it and the people want it. And that's who we represent. I don't think any Republican come November, any conservative come November will have a constituency that doesn't agree that this needs to be fixed. And because of that, we're going to be able to roll forward. And I tell you what, if Cooper would have vetoed a bill like that, he would have lost so much of the Black community. It's ridiculous. So we win even if we lose.
Yeah.
By fighting.
Put them on record. Put these people on record as to what they stand for and show it to the world, Well,
I want to bring Suter on because Suter, all right, are you ready to come in? Okay. All right. And makeup's done and we're on. Okay. So here's an idea that I think might be universally accepted, particularly with teachers. The idea of cutting the DPI down, we want it in half. Others want it 100%, but reappropriating that money, okay, into the classroom, into teachers' salaries. Look, teachers are not getting paid enough. Starting salaries are not high enough. That brings out the weirdos, Brian. The people that say, I don't care if I'm making, whatever it is, 45,000, however much it is, because I get to be around kids. We don't want that. Okay, well, that was my weirdo. But this is
sounded like a cackle.
Hillary Clinton-esque, maybe. But we want it to be a profession. And so, you guys are on the front lines. You deserve like combat pay. They're like the well-paid generals who are sitting up in the barracks with their feet up, leg on leg, not doing a damn thing and getting paid a lot of money. And in fact, Suter, you and I have talked, often they're enacting programs that make you do more work and they get in the way. What do you think about that idea of reappropriating that money?
I agree.
Well, yeah. And when you're talking about that money, what else is terrible is between 5 and 15 years for veteran teachers, there is no salary increase in North Carolina. There's no salary increase. There's no cost of living increase. So you're talking about your veteran teachers aren't getting a pay raise for 10 plus years. That to me is where you keep the good teachers that aren't doing what the government wants them to do right now in grooming and critical race theory and things like that. So yes, it needs to be reallocated. And I don't think it needs to be reallocated to these brand new teachers that are coming out of their liberal arts colleges. It needs to be reallocated to veteran teachers with experience. And yes, hazard pay. And to SROs. We need SROs in every school right now. Not just middle and high school, elementary schools need them too.
Melissa, so you're in a district that you've got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, gangs, still sexual assaults, and it's interesting. I'll tell you, Melissa, you and I had a conversation a month ago after we wrote that expose. Glenn Beck did a whole hour on our stuff, citing Nancy, both your work at Orange County and then in Wilmington. And we had, check this out, and it was facts, right? We had teachers trolling the hell out of us. Look, I've done this for a long time. I've had people troll and cover, etc. But they were going after you. They're going after me. And if you know anything about me, I love that stuff. I eat it for breakfast. It's so much fun. Love it to be trolled. It makes me feel alive. But it was all teachers. And it was a lot of men. Male teachers were exceptionally angry. So much so that many of them, well, many too, but many of them on one particular day during the workday used their workday when they're supposed to be teaching to troll us. This subject, talking about the very real issue of grooming and that gender care plan, just us talking about it pissed people off. They were talking about, Brian, I don't know if you kept up with it. They were talking about doxing us. They were talking about all kinds of stuff. So you do have weirdos that are out there that are teaching, right? I mean, what are we going to do to rein them in, Melissa? Any ideas? I mean,
I think that what's going to clean house is when we get rid of the CRT, when we get rid of the SEL, when we get rid of all of these programs that are damaging kids, because they are going to be angry that they can't have that agenda anymore. And I think that what will happen is they will say that we are stifling them. We are not using good programs. And so it's my belief that many of them will leave for that reason. Now, I could be wrong, but I feel like we can filter out, we can get rid of the ones that we don't want in our schools anymore by doing that, for sure.
Brian, we need enforcement. The thing that very much disappointed me is that bill, the one anti-CRT bill, was anemic. It had zero teeth, none. And guess what it said? We're going to say that you can't do this, that, and the other, which we don't want. And then we're going to give it to the DPI to implement and oversee. DPI is the problem.
Yeah, DPI is the problem. As a matter of fact, I said to a teacher just the other day, I said, you guys stand outside the legislative building and you're calling out for more money, but 58% of the state's budget is at DPI. Why don't you go stand outside and demand an audit of DPI so that the money for your raise can actually be there, right? So it was like, I mean, if I'm looking for the money, I go where the money is at, right? So when you think about enforcement of that, you're going to kick it over to DPI, but what's the consequence?
Right.
Number one, if a neighbor can't have that conversation with my child by themselves, in a group, any circumstance, then who thinks that it should be had in the classroom? And immediately there would be consequences. Immediately. And that's what we need. If you have these kind of conversations with a child in real life, that's a crime.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be reported. It's going to be a big problem, right? So why is it okay all of a sudden to have that kind of criminal behavior in a classroom? And what happens is when I say things like that, immediately the 99% of great teachers come running out saying, well, there's only a small few. Well, dear teachers, I'm only talking about that few. They make you, you have to go through this whole apology of all the great teachers. We know all the great teachers. We're trying to get the great teachers more pay, better situations. We're talking about the people, the weirdos who are in the classroom who want to talk to kids about sex.
Mm-hmm.
That's who we're talking about. And there has to be enforcement for that.
Well, and Melissa, you know better than anyone here that they do exist. I mean, you had a culture of silence in that school district that allowed, I don't have the number on the victims, but any more than one victim is too many. But I know that it was, into the double digits. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. At least in the double digits. Yes. And those select few teachers, they're the ones that claim that those are our kids. That's my kid. And I taught I've been a teacher for a long time. And when I taught younger kids, I never, ever, ever considered talking to them about religion, sex, or politics, because it's not my job. It's not my job. As a teacher, you have so much authority and influence over these kids. And so when you take that authority and you start talking about things that are really meant to be talked about with parents, that's borderline abuse. Maybe not even borderline. It's abuse. That's abuse of your power. And you can't, as a teacher, you shouldn't be taking that and running with it and saying, well, we know better and we're more tolerant and we're going to listen to you and don't worry about your parents. Care about that. It's abuse of power. It's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, I think back to my, I did public school first through senior year, and I don't remember. I mean, I can name my elementary school teachers. I remember vividly what the classrooms looked like, what I liked about each one of them. I don't ever remember knowing anything about their personal lives. Never knew their spouses, never knew if they had kids, unless their spouse happened to work at the school. And it wasn't even and this was a small town. None of that was in the classroom. There was a separation of that. And now it's like, some of these weirdos are just going in to use these kids as almost like their personal therapists. It's really strange. These secret grooming clubs, just really, I mean, I can't, like you said earlier, Brian, I can't believe we're having this conversation. I can't believe we have to call on politicians to make legislation about this. You think it would be common sense stuff. But we're at this point and they need to do it. And we need people in there like you two who know on the ground what's really happening and understand that this is real. This isn't some joke, this isn't some operation.
Nancy, if they educate the children, the problem is the children are going to be fantastic and great and they're going to be brilliant and everything else. So if they can read, if they can write, they're going to be phenomenal. And the fact is there's a lot of people in this country who don't want that phenomenal future. So they do fight these things. Mm-hmm. They do veto these kind of things. And so it's not really down to the child, it's what they want America to be.
Right.
So it's for me, it's all about my child as a parent. But we have to look at the broader future, the broader picture, because the fact is they don't care about my child. And I'm not talking about a teacher. I'm talking about the entire situation. Yeah. What they care about is a future that they want to be cast in a certain image. And now that trickles down into is, hey, reading and writing is not very important. I think it was Detroit that had amongst Black students something like a 7% literacy rate. And so what are they preparing those Black students for? They're preparing them for a horrible future where they could possibly be dependent on the government. And what we're going to do is make sure that's not the future we have in North Carolina. We're going to get the weirdness out. We're going to get these kind of people here out.
That's right.
Okay.
So if they tell you that this is the argument that we got, all right, is that you're slamming teachers. This is what you talked about, Brian. You're slamming teachers, and it's just a few. And we even believe all teachers. Teachers know what they're doing. How dare you? When have you ever taught? Well, let me tell you something. This is just some of the mugshots in the last 18 months in North Carolina of people who were arrested and charged They all look different. They're the same and that they're so different, right? You don't know when is someone going to be a groomer. You don't know. Parents need to be involved. And so if you say, believe all teachers are great, and no, I'm sorry. Look, it's just like any other profession. They're bad apples in every bunch. But I'm telling you, would you want any of those teachers to be teaching your child about social emotional learning, how they're reacting to things, what their gender is? Would you want that? Hell no is the answer.
Yes.
And Melissa, this is the common sense stuff I'm talking about. So the fight is just beginning. And so what I want to pivot to right now is that we are going to have a lot of work to do, and we're going to have a lot of volunteers. We're going to need a lot more volunteers. Volunteers, I love you. You made the calls, you knocked on the doors, you braved the heat, you were at the polls greeting, and I mean, you did a fantastic job. We need to quadruple the amount of volunteers we have. So I'm preparing you for the things you're going to hear, right? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to post the things, the common sense articles that we write, or you're going to share common sense articles. Your job is to be a force multiplier. And you're going to hear crazy people like you did, Michelle, at the school board meeting, say that my reporting is fake news. How dare you?
Yeah, it's so interesting. The Title IX coordinator totally backpedaled at the last school board meeting when he talked about it, and it was just like he gave 6 different answers in 4 minutes. So he said, we don't have this policy. We have a document, but we don't use it. We use the document, but not anymore. We used the document, but not in that way. We don't use the document anymore because we found out we didn't need it. And we never hid the document. It was just never public facing. It's misinformation. So they are backpedaling. They are trying to make me look like an idiot. And honestly, it's all documented. There's video of him saying, we use this. We've used this several times. We're training teachers and counselors. They're trying to make me look bad, but the evidence is very clear if you just do the research. And so that's my job. I'm going to be showing them what liars they are. And if they want to try and fight back, I can use their words. It's fine.
So now, but I want everybody to understand out there is now we've got to pivot because we've been in our own little cocoon. Okay. Yes. But now we're going to have to be facing more people who have not heard about this, that do not have kids. Okay. So we cannot be, let's say, here's this going on, here's with our hair on fire, etc. Shooter, we have got teachers. We've got a lot of teachers on our side who go into your school and ask and see if this is being done as a teacher and see how fast you get run out of there. Mm-hmm. Right. So Nancy, the research that you and I do, it starts with the research. Okay. And then it goes to the candidates and the people. It's getting that research out there in front of people and making them care, Brian. You've got a great way of doing it because, like you said, this is so common sense. To see otherwise is strange.
Well, I would say that 90% of the teachers I've spoken to agree with us. Some of them are terrified of backlash for speaking out, but they agree with us because teachers are also parents.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a conversation with a teacher here, and I simply said to her, she said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, when you hear about it, when you see it, report it. But, there's this code of silence among them. And obviously, everyone's just trying to take care of their own students. And I believe the teachers love their students. I believe all of that. So we're not talking about the 98%, 99%. And when there's liberal leftist thinking involved, because if you would disagree with a black person, it's because they're black. Now they say you hate black people. So if you disagree with a teacher, you hate teachers. And so all of that is leftist thinking. We don't think like that over here on the right side, meaning correct side, because that's ridiculous. So we don't think that way. So when we pivot and we go forward facing and we're dealing not just in our little cocoon, but with everyone. I want to tell everyone, don't fear the accusation. Don't fear the name calling. What are they going to call you? A racist. They're going to call you anti-teacher. They're going to call you all of these things. You stand on the truth. You double, triple, quadruple down on the truth, and you refuse to walk backwards. You refuse to walk backwards. We had about 200 people at our watch party last night. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. Black people, white people, Hispanics, everybody, right? Apparently that doesn't happen in America, but it happened last night. So we're in there, and I tell them, I said, we have to get rid of this big tent thing. I don't have a big tent. We're not going to get along just to get along. We're not going to take a single step back on the truth. However, if you're down for the cause, if you have the right convictions, we have a place in the foxhole. We have a seat in the tank, because we have to win this war. We're not a big happy tent. We're not just trying to be in office. We have to advance, take back everything they've stolen from our children, from us, from our society. And then we have to go ahead and make sure we advance these things so that the next generation knows exactly how to live. That is what we're dealing with. There's room in the tank, Sloan. There's room in the tank. There's a seat, but you got to be a fighter. You got to be a warrior. You have to know what you're fighting for, what the cause is. Get in the tank.
Yeah, Brian, you said it earlier.
Get in or get run over.
Sorry.
Run over.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I love that analogy. Is that, you know, we are being too tolerant, and that's what has gotten us here. Look, as Republicans, we have won since, I mean, for 20 years, right, in the legislature, but we have lost the state. We have lost the war, but won the elections. And it is because I don't want to get the bill vetoed, or it's going to incur unnecessary ill will, is
Right.
what we hear. Things like that, where, and now we're losing. Look, Deanna Ballard was chair of the Education Committee for the Senate. Extremely, extremely powerful. Been there chairing, not only a chair of the Education Committee, but also over appropriations, also over ed appropriations, and is supposed to be looking after everything. Since 2017, this whole state, especially the education system, has become more woke than California. And we know, because we have 2 chapters there. We know it. So under her watch, this has all happened. So then we found out, Nancy and I, that she was involved with the Hunt Institute, a far left think tank that is a Bill Gates think tank, and Zuckerberg. And so we said that to change education, the legislature is so powerful, Brian, you know this, she has to go. So we're happy to report that Ralph Heiss won that race by around 400 votes.
Excellent.
And I'll tell you, he won it. He won it in a place called Avery County. It's Avery County. And we sent mailers to Avery County. There were 9 counties. We chose Avery County because that was the county that neither Ballard nor Heiss had ever run in or won in. We took that and we won, because if we were sitting here and had not made this pack and said, we're just going to keep writing the stories and blah, blah, and hope and pray. When people do not listen to us, what do we become, Melissa? More shrill, right? More loud. What, right? We want, and that's my point. We want to not have our hair on fire. We want to be effective. Effective. And so what does that mean? It means, in this case, taking and grabbing real power, taking people, like you said, Brian, using that, I don't want to say as a weapon, as a tool to elevate one candidate and not the other. But we have to figure out a way to your point, you're talking about bringing people in, just attracting people to your fight, and nothing does that more than standing and speaking truth. And here's why. Because you're going to speak truth, and someone somewhere is going to hear and say, I know that's right, and I'm struggling with that too, and be attracted to that.
Yes.
Nothing is sicker than simping and pandering.
Yes.
Well, yeah, people are tired of it. And I think these politicians or public servants, or whatever you want to call them, they now got to be aware, not just their voting record is being watched, but who they associate with, what NGOs, what institutes, what universities, who are they schmoozing with? Are they all going to these conferences, patting each other on the back, taking some nice Instagram photos? What do these institutions really stand for? What are they supporting? And I think, again, doing the research for that, exposing it like Sloan has done so well with, and others, so that everyday people can understand, hey, your politician, your representative might have a pretty photo on Instagram, but look who they're associating with, and knowing that these elected representatives are now being watched that closely, I think that's a change for them. I don't think they like it. And I think that's why we have people like you, Melissa, and Brian, ready to take office, because people are tired of their representatives going off and schmoozing with these institutes and not really representing the people.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian, you are up against a very attractive candidate. I mean, she's been in the Republican Party as a young Republican, and she's got a lot of fresh ideas and fresh to the table. I mean, you really won in a district that's looking for what she has and what you have. I mean, that was hard fought and very impressive candidate, and you prevailed. And the reason you prevailed is because Cabarrus County in particular is on fire for education.
Yes.
I mean, you won it. She's a young girl. She doesn't know a lot about education and not very interested in it, quite frankly, but very impressive nonetheless. And Melissa, you won. I mean, obviously you're in education, but you ain't backing down. You
No.
have
No. Well, I have skin in the game. I have kids in the schools, and I don't want my kids to be groomed, and I don't want my kids to be programmed. No, I have skin in the game. I'm not backing down.
And people are attracted to that. You're not hiding it. And that's the point I want to make with all of you, because we're going to ask all of you to be a force multiplier to get these candidates and our other candidates elected. Because guess what? We're winners.
We're winners.
That's the thing. I mean, that's kind of our thing. And we're going to win, and we're going to need your help to do that. And so you're going to have to help in your own way. Look, if you're kind of a shy person, for you, taking that step, taking that battle might be sharing a Facebook post. Now I know I'm minimizing it, but hey, for a lot of people that's a very, very big deal. Suitor,
It's a big deal.
Especially Suitor as a teacher. What can teachers do to help out and really help their future? Look, teachers, we're trying to give you less overhead, less red tape, more money, right? And to be protected from having a diversity class every month. Suitor, what can teachers do to join in the fight and keep their jobs?
Well, to keep their jobs, they got to walk in with their head held high after, they get called names. I think the first thing you have to know when you step out is that, one, like Brian said, you're going to be called a racist, be called a homophobe. It may sting the first couple times, and then you can just kind of walk through and roll your eyes because you know who you are and you know who you're fighting for. And I think that's something that is hard for a lot of teachers because we have been groomed, I guess, to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And like Nancy said earlier, coming up, I didn't know, if who my teachers were married to. I didn't know what religion they were. And that's what we need to get back to. And I think that's what people and teachers need to focus on. And if you focus on that, and it comes from the top, when the top's pushing this stuff down your throat,
yeah,
a lot of teachers won't push out. And Brian also said, having someone to support them. If you're a teacher sitting on here watching this, thinking, I don't know what to do, I don't know who to do, that was me a year ago. And you can come to us and we will help give you this strength that you need to stand up. And it's not even just standing up against grooming. It's standing up to give kids what they need. These kids need to know how to read. And even after meeting you, Sloan, I stood up against the district in what they wanted me to teach, even just for reading, because it's not what the kids needed. The kids were 2 years behind in reading, but you want me to push a curriculum that to me was advanced for kids that would be on grade level, kids that are nowhere near. And I pretty much said, I mean, I guess at that point too, I was in up a creek with them anyway. So what was it going to hurt me? But I said, I'm not doing this. I'm going to go back to what they need, because if I don't, they're never. And Brian, you talked to that too. That's what they want. They don't want them to get it. They don't want them to be able to think for themselves. And I'm not talking about teachers, because I watch teachers that I know I didn't agree with politically and that were pushing CRT on kids still felt like our kids were being hurt because they're being taught how to read properly. And we can stand together even on that. You don't even want to touch the other subjects. Come on the fact that our kids need to learn reading and math, and they're not being taught that.
Right. So what you just said, just not to cut anyone off, what you just said is the easiest way, the very easiest way, guys, for us to talk about this stuff. If we're approaching it this way, even with teachers, if we would say, how would you feel if we put $6,000 extra in your pocket every year? Mm-hmm. Who would want that, right? And then we'll follow it up by saying, did you know that this diversity training costs the district $40 million or however much it is? Did you know that the DPI is if we cut half of it, it would reappropriate $50 million a year? That's something that's easy, and to a parent to be able to say, did you know that $40 million is being, and we're going to get numbers for you. You can count on us to report your numbers. Did you know that, this district spent $10 million in this grooming curriculum and not reading and writing?
Exactly.
Well, as it stands right now, Sloan, we have a vacant position for an equity, diversity, and inclusion director. That's a six-figure position that we are holding so that we can replace that person that left it. So that right there is an indicator of, well, that's not helping our kids. How is this helping our kids? Oh, this is going to close the gap. This is going to close the gap of reading. This is going to close the gap of math. How? No answer.
Well, can I say this? And I appreciate what the process is in terms of people coming to grips with what they have to do. However, I think before we talk about all of that, why don't we just talk about the fact that teachers know right from wrong and it's time to step up? Why don't we just say, if you know a kid is being groomed, if you know there's a teacher who has some weirdness about them, why don't you just step up? If you don't get an extra $6,000, why don't we just call on our neighbor to do what's right, to do what they would want for someone to do for their child? Why don't we just start there? Let's not skip to paying, because what then what? We have to pay people to do right from now on? No, the teachers are literally some of the greatest people and greatest neighbors in the community. And I think instead of going on, hey, curriculum for a moment, let's just talk about the fact that you're a dynamic neighbor, and that you know what's right and wrong, and that you understand how fragile the heart of a child is, and that you're going to take a stand, and you're not going to let another one of these teachers smuggle in their stuff. You're going to take a stand, and you're going to tell whoever needs to be told, whether it's Sloan, the superintendent, or the principal, and you're going to put it on the line for what's right. I had to run for office, and I had to put it on the line. I had to put myself and my family in harm's way in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So I'm saying, hey, teachers, guess what? This country is ours. Just put it on the line. Let's go ahead and just, for integrity's sake, for right and wrong's sake, let's do something. And at the same time, we're going to audit DPI. We're going to let these people know how much money is being spent in their district on this mess. And then we're going to also get you compensated. But we're not going to start with, I'm going to compensate you to do what's right. I'm going to compensate you to protect kids. No, you in your heart, you know. And I trust you And now I challenge not just teachers, every adult, everyone at DPI. I challenge you to stand up and do what's right. That's it. And we can also get them more money. And we can also get the children more curriculum that will help them in this reading struggle that we're having, in this math struggle that we're having. But let's start with what's right. And maybe I'm a little off there, but I have to say it is honest. We don't have to pay you to do right. We don't have to pay you to intervene in a bad situation. And as a parent, I'm speaking to Mr. and Mrs. Teacher, you need to intervene.
Yeah.
And that's it. And we'll get you more money. But
right, exactly. But if we cut, so Nancy, I mean, the thing is Nancy and I have been doing a lot of work on the DPI, because we know that the real power center is at the state. We're doing stories like that FPG contract. There's mandates, right, Nancy? So that would probably hem in good teachers, don't you think?
Well, I can tell you that in my research, just this year alone, since January, $25 million has been appropriated either via the legislature or the NCDPI towards CRT or highly progressive leftist organizations, including one training organization up in New York City run by, obvious ideologues. So you can just go on social media and research it. $25 million in just the first 3 months of 2022 going to this stuff through DPI. And they don't even necessarily contract within themselves. It's going to outside organizations and institutes. So like one of those is Frank Porter Graham. And, we started to expose that. We have more coming. But this is the type of stuff that the legislators and the school board members need to see so they can figure out how to stop this. HB 324, the anti-CRT bill, wasn't perfect. But one of the things I liked about it was, and again, like Sloan mentioned in the beginning, the accountability factor was bad because it gave the power to the DPI to oversee this. But you couldn't contract necessarily with these businesses. I call them snake oil salesmen that were going to introduce all these ideologies, as training into the schools. And essentially that's what Frank Porter Graham is, under the guise of preschool training or transition to kindergarten training. They're actually indoctrinating these kids in ideologies that are horrendously radical and anti-civil rights legislation. And it's there to see, and we're going to have a follow-up report, and I have emails to prove it, and CDPI knew what was going on. So, this is what our legislators and our school board members are fighting against and what they need to know. And hopefully we can continue giving that information so they can act on it and hold the DPI and those involved accountable, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I love the accountability, and I love that. And look, as we end here, I just want to share your feelings, Nancy, that I love to see all of this come together, because we need to be very open about all working together. Let's run on the same planks. So everybody in our, cachet of endorsees, we're running on the same planks. That's why it's so cool. We got a city commissioner, or county commissioner rather. We've got NC House and Senate. We've got our federal candidates. Courtney Geels is one, and Cindy Smith is the other. That's going to be the Republican nominee. And, is stop this spending $4.50 for a gallon of gas. And we're talking about, Nancy, $25 million in taxpayer money being lit on fire, and worse, not only being lit on fire, starting fires inside of our schools, inside of our homes. It's programming is satanic, basically. I mean, what's going on?
It's gobs and gobs and gobs of money just being recycled
dollars
to federal, on all levels.
Yeah.
Just being recycled to the in-group, educators that go off to become consultants, or the activists who become consultants, and they just recycle it and give it to each other. And then they elevate themselves to policy positions and put in policies that allow this to continue. And
that hems Melissa in.
Yeah. And Yeah, and we need to stop the cycle now, because I'm hoping it's not too late as it is. But
Can't be.
these bureaucrats are just, they're enriching themselves and using their policy positions and, moral high grounds. You're a racist if you disagree with me, type of thing, to collect the money at the expense of our kids, and it's disgusting.
So, lobbying is another thing. So, one thing that you agreed to is the question we asked on the survey, and I don't know if we asked it on the school board or not, Melissa, but will you use your platform to ensure that everybody working at the DPI, which, by the way, gets an average salary of $132,000 a year, all of us are in the wrong job, right?
Yeah.
So if you're making $132,000, you ought not to be married to an educational lobbyist.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because Catherine Truitt's right-hand man is married to an education lobbyist that, get this, makes money off of psychiatric clinics that we're putting into these schools.
Wow.
That's right. Products that represent CRT. And he is a Republican working for a Republican superintendent. And moreover, he was so dishonest that he was lying on his disclosure forms, the ones you guys are going to have to sign when you get into office. People like that are they're at the top of the food chain, you guys. And so if people like that are doing stuff, what are the expectations for principals, superintendents, etc.? What, if anything goes up at the top level, what's the deal?
Well, can I say this, Sloan? I'm optimistic about our situation. The situation is horrible, but I'm optimistic about it because what we're going to have is a supermajority.
Yes.
With God's grace. And what I think is the people, particularly us, the conservatives, the Republicans, I think that these men and women in office are going to represent the interests of their districts. They're not going to represent just special interests. They're going to represent the interests of the people who sent them. And right now, education is at a fever. Yeah. I mean, education is at 103. Parents are concerned for the safety of their kids. We're tired of the trans thing with sports and bathrooms and everything else, right? Instead of trying to get all the students help, why don't we help the students who need it instead of this big blanket approach they're trying to take with the SEL and all of that, right? So I'm optimistic. I'm confident in the legislature. We get this supermajority. I think that we're going to go, because of people like you guys, and represent the interests of the people who voted us in. Mm-hmm. And what that's going to mean is all of the things we talked about today. And that includes the teachers. That includes the salaries and all of that stuff. And I think that's what it is. So I'm optimistic. We have a war that we're going to win.
Absolutely. I agree. With all of the people that I talked to at the polls, I can't even tell you how many asked me, where do you stand on CRT? Where do you stand on social emotional learning? Where do you stand on these things? This is important to our voters at this point, and they are listening and they are paying attention to who is saying what. And
at every age.
We cannot relent. We cannot relent, but I am definitely optimistic as well.
Yes. And I'm confident. We're going to do it.
Absolutely.
We're going to get a big fat W, and there's nothing like standing on the neck of your adversary and getting a victory. And I think that all of the parents are going to see it just like that as we get rid of this stuff. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. Good's going to win over evil, but we're going to close out with an ask. I want you to share this with 10 people. Okay. As I always say, but look, we need volunteers. When do we need them?
Yesterday.
Now. I have a tough race.
Now, right?
They're talking about $1 million coming into my district. I have a tough race. This is a great victory that we had, but we have to win in November.
Yeah, we've got a sign up form for right now. Whoops. Okay, we've got a sign up form. Oh my gosh. Okay. edfirstnc.org, edfirstnc.org. Hit us up because we will train you and we'll put you to work. We need Alpo researchers because we got to dig that dirt. So we need Alpo researchers. We need phone call makers. We need candlestick makers. I'm joking. We don't need that. We need we need people to write op-eds. We need all kinds of stuff. But we need a force, a show of force. And I have to tell you, in a couple of the races, there was outspending of the people we were going against. In 2 races in particular, it was 2-1. People make the difference. People are going to make the difference this time. We need poll watchers for obvious reasons, because we are living through the consequences of a stolen election. We don't want it to happen again. We need poll watchers. We need poll greeters. All right. So sign up, get involved. Thank you for tuning in. This is a victory.
Yep.
This is a huge victory, and we're going to get more victory. Thank you guys for coming on tonight. Have a good night.
We're running. God, that's so great.
Guys.
Nancy's smiling. That's good night.
I smile.
But when you smile, it's worth smiling. Something's good happening. All right.
Yes.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night. Thank you.
Congratulations.